Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this narration of the web series, The Nature of Predators. If you're new to the series, there is a playlist listed down below in the description. And as always, I hope that you enjoy. Chapter 118, Memory Transcription Subject, Chief Hunter Isif, Arxa Rebellion Command. Date Standardized Human Time, January 14th, 2137. The promise of food was the main selling point for my rebellion. After going hungry for the entirety of their lives, many Arxol troops were willing to heed my call with the promise of never missing a meal again. Betterment failed in that imperative, and merely pointing out the illogical nature of our raids proved that they never intended to deliver. My plan to utilize the Terran-gifted cattle and harvest non-sapiens from untouched worlds was alluring. I also offered sanctuary to defectives and defectors, reaching out through the secretive forums like the one I'd stumbled across before my fateful visit to Shizar's sector. It didn't matter which reason they opposed the Arks of Dominion for. Checking all the bases was my top priority. There was outreach condemning the consumption of former omnivores to those who believed races like the Gojits were truly sapient. We offered roles to those who didn't wish to fight or sought civilian pursuits. Like Jones says, just taking manpower away from Gizno and his people helps the war effort. The future of the Arxol shouldn't be only about soldiers. That's how we got here. Lastly, on the internet, I planted the rumor that Batman starved us intentionally, having kick-started our suffering to start with, and allowed the people to circulate it. Initial recruitment had been more successful than I imagined. Even non-defectives were wary of lifelong war, and a strategy that was bound to ensure its countenance. 90% of my troops from the original sector, and around 65% of the ones from Shazar's old sector, stayed under my control, too. Gaining allies beyond the UN's vague promise of future support was key. Rival chief hunters had yet to join me, although I wasn't giving up on that. If we can hang in the fight for long enough to validate our strength, then the self-centered brutes might decide that we were worthy of support. They could rule their own sectors, solidifying all the power without any oversight. Manufacturing power was critical, since we needed to generate more ships. The humans sent us supplies, weapons, and small craft on the down low, though nothing that would draw attention or prove their involvement. Due to our need to grow our fleet, I encouraged anyone defecting to steal an armed transport, playing to ego. Mutinous captains who convinced some of their crew and brought a full warship were offered rank promotions. "Hello, Isif." Lisa Reynolds looked up as I entered the daily briefing room, yawning in harmony with me. The two Terrans had done a decent job of guarding me and keeping me appraised of any intel the UN or my own people scrounged up. Jones must have coached them. "The Secretary General is waiting on the secure line. He says that he can offer something you want." I lashed my tail with interest, hoping that meant the Terrans were lending military support early. As fun as it would be to keep Earth's leader waiting, having the aid of a UN establishment would be crucial. I grumbled for her and Oleg to set up the call, and decided to push my status update on the rebellion to a later in the day. There was also the matter of selecting some Arxol underlings for leadership roles. I would be interviewing a few presumed defectives on their candidacy soon. It was a busy day, as there seemed to be no shortage of action. I'd selected an Arxol protege, but he could wait for his call and the subsequent briefing to continue. Valra's whiskers twitched as she sat at the center of the table, where she could have the best view in the house. The Dosa and I spent a lot of time conversing, though I was careful to keep her away from the Arxol general populace. "What do you think Zal wants to give you?" the ginger and white rodent asked. "The way to contact the Federation. You can make amends on behalf of your sect and get them as allies." A growl rumbled in my throat. "Ugh. Harping on that again. That's what you want, not the humans. They're realists, except for Oleg." "Ah, come on. Let up now. I hear that line from Lisa enough." Oleg hunched over my holopad, a slight smile on his face. "I get it. I shouldn't have brought up my theories about Al Greys. It was an honest question." "You know what else is an honest question? Why Isif shouldn't try to reach out to the Federation," Fowler pressed. "He says he's friends with Tava already." I whipped my snout towards her. "We are not friends, in the slightest. That Vendel just doesn't want someone else commanding her sector, because I'm lesser evil and I want change. She knows I partook in and oversaw unspeakable things. Would you like me to outline them for you, so that you can know to—" I would. It must have been horrible to have to blend in with monsters or die.
Why can't you just act like a normal doser? Scream, cry, cower.
Valra giggled as an answer, before wandering over to Lisa's spot. Peacekeeper Reynolds absent-mindedly petted the deranged rodent, who seemed to enjoy the human nails pricking her spine. These were my advisors, leaf-licking aliens I lived with every day. Why did I tolerate them? I marched up to Alexei and hovered over him to encourage him to work faster. The conspiracy theorist snapped his fingers. All set, it's connecting now. So get ready, Isif.
Got it. Your tactical skills are appreciated. Hell yeah. Us human nerds have game. Best in the biz. Your self-complimenting assures me of your humility. The best do not have to declare that they are the best, yes?
Don't have to, but I'm going to anyway, and hey, for what it's worth, I empathize with losing yourself, trying to blend in somewhere you don't belong. Vendel Prime was harsh at first. If I hadn't met some special people at that right time, I might have forgot what I was fighting for. Not the same, but we're all shaped by our societies and our situations. That is a long-winded way of him saying he gets it, Lisa chimed in. From what I've seen of you, I think you're a softie.
I cast a glare in her direction. I will rip off one of your limbs if you ever say that again.
Yeah, tough guy, whatever you say. I huffed in irritation and stared down the camera with a bit more hostility than was needed. Secretary General Zal wouldn't understand my glare, but I couldn't have the humans calling me weak to my face. Wasn't softy an insult? The leader of the Arxer rebellion was no scrawny runt, unable to enforce his will. That was equally as bad as considering me as a monster.
If Zal was calling to yank on my chain, then I'll show him a real skull. I need to be tougher with these humans, whether we're friends or not.
The Secretary General blinked onto the video display.
Hello. Thank you for taking my call, Isif. I know you're busy. Sure. Though I am busy, I can fit in time for Earth. Oh, I'll keep it short. I don't want to waste your time, but say, before I get down to the meat of the matter, do you mind fitting me in on the latest war developments? Just want to make sure that Jones isn't painting her own narrative.
Humoring Zal wasn't what I planned to do first thing in the morning, but I had to keep him in my corner. Oleg and Lisa watched as I started my speech, ready to chip in if needed. There were a lot of moving parts in the war, so summarizing it in concise fashion wouldn't be easy. However, I didn't want to squander any excess time rehashing the past.
Well, I'm sure I'm telling you what you already know, I began diplomatically, but we ceded a lot of our immobile infrastructure to the Dominion. Since it's an easy target, we stay hidden and on the move, only surfacing to disrupt Arxor operations. Jones has been directing some rebels via internet channels to pull some shenanigans from within Risk's borders. Zal nodded. Like we saw what you've done. Government sleeper agents are quite effective. How are you and your people faring against experiment? I know Gisnell is after your head. They've sent multiple search parties after us, while seeming to avoid human space. They do not wish to step on your toes, if I'm not mistaken. Anyhow, there have been 3 odd forays into my sector this week. We do not intend to challenge them until the right opportunity presents itself. Excellent. And how are Benderenko and Reynolds? Can they confirm to me that everything is good with their supplies and their treatment? Despite the fact that I had received non-sapient cattle post-Silas, humans were distrustful of any Arxor-sourced meat. I would not dupe my guards, who were on cordial terms with me, into eating sapient herbivore flesh. However, that wasn't a risk the United Nations or the Duer themselves were willing to take. I understood on a logical level that the propaganda, should Terrans be documented enjoying a cut of Vendel fillet, would be devastating. Therefore, Oleg and Lisa maintained their own food supply, and I made no efforts to take it away. My concern on that issue was more for my internet friend. Valra couldn't stomach watching us eat their lab-grown cuts or my animal-sourced meals, as we learned the hard way. The doser had tried, but there were some responses she couldn't manage. I was impressed with how quickly she grasped the concept of an obligate carnivore for a Federation creature. Everything is fine, sir. We are safe and well and missing Earth, Lisa said. Zal pursed his lips. Glad to hear it. We'll leave another shipment in the same spot as always. Now, I'll cut to the chase, Isif. I call to offer you a gift. I only wanted to make sure your insurgency would last more than a few weeks, and that you wouldn't become a problematic faction in your own right. Your forces are ready to join us? I queried. Not yet. I'm forwarding some blueprints over this link, which I think you'll find useful. There's clear instructions for any scientists you have. My eyes narrowed. Before I accepted the file transfer, after the slight hesitation, I was certain that if the humans wanted to worm malware onto my system, they'd already had. I wouldn't even realize, with their sneakiness. The documents that popped onto my screen were explanations of how to create lab-grown meat. This was a ticket to growing substantial food, without needing any livestock. I can't believe he's just giving this to me. Doesn't he hate us? I am giving this to you free, as a thank you for all that you've done for Earth, the Secretary General continued. Jones's one-sided ploys weren't fair to you. She told you that I would treat you like a pawn, but she accused me of what she herself is doing. That won't be my policy in our dealings. The United Nations is true to our friends, period. Emotion swelled in my chest, realizing the implications this could have for starving billions. Thank you, Mr. Secretary General. I do appreciate it deeply. Your human innovation will be put to good use. I have faith in you, Issav. We're all rooting for you here. I'll let you go, but I wish you well in your coming days. You as well. Tear the Federation a new one. The Secretary General flashed his teeth. Oh, we're working on it. Zhao clicked off the channel, and my pupils flickered over to human guards. In the short duration that I'd been chatting about lab-grown meat, Valra had rolled into her pack. Lisa was tickling the dose's stomach, which earned squeals from the rodent. I hissed in disgust, hoping that the Secretary General hadn't heard this nonsense. I'd been so focused that I was oblivious to anything happening in the background. Make yourselves presentable. Don't make me regret not letting the Colchians have you, Valra, I snarled. The doser flipped back on her pulse. That decision is made, and now you have to live with it. You, could try petting me too. No! Get that first Oxel grunt now, Lisa, and sit away from Valra. As the petting happy primate darted off, Oleg risked a glance at me. What are we looking for? Do you want our advice? If it's solicited, we're going to fill out my advices. We need people who must be loyal to me, might be willing to tolerate the hunting challenge species, and can also be influential. That's why I asked Valra to be here. How they react to her is a good indicator of if they'll try to eat every herbivore they see. The doser shivered. I don't like this. Come here, Valra. I won't let them get anywhere near you. Lisa returned, guiding a scrawny Oxor with an unimpressive muscle tone. I reacquainted myself with the facts of this one's circumstances, and emitted a contemplative hum. By all accounts, he was weakling, who was a few slip-ups away from being executed by betterment. He was captured by humans on the cradle, seeking deflection to Earth. During the exchange of Venal cattle, he'd been returned with other Oxor prisoners. I observed his scrawny grunt once he was transferred under my direct command. Jones's hint that he pleaded for Earth not to return him during our prior conference at Proxima Centauri confirmed my suspicions that he hated betterment. He had already wanted to leave before Seleni's broadcast or my offer. I decided that an apparent defective would have undying loyalty as long as I kept him fed. The Terrans hadn't protected him, so I doubted he'd run back to them. The perfect second, assuming he's accepting of Valra and empathic Oxor. A stretch for anyone raised on risks. Valra scurried up atop my head, which earned a long stare from the newly arrived Oxor defector. I donned my most threatening scowl and bared my teeth. The scrawny grunt ducked his head and submissively, allowing Lisa to show him to a chair. He waited with expectancy, a hint of anxiety showing in his fidgeting tail. Kayasal, I greeted the Oxor. I've been watching you for a while. Kayasal's gaze swept across the table before returning to Valra. There's a docile animal here. Are we eating it together? Oh my, the stupid thing doesn't even realize I am honored to join you, sir. You will treat the Dosser with the respect befitting of any companion of mine. She is not food. She is a trusted, loyal friend. Realization flashed in Kosal's dark eyes, and he jerked back in surprise. Admitting an herbivore was a friend was a massive risk. With an unknown Oxor, it was as good as confessing that I felt empathy, and not only that I was defective enough to seek bonds like a social creature. His lips curled with momentary contempt,
though he reeled himself back in. A sliver of appetite flashed at his eyes as well. "I am surprised you got it to sit still," the grunt hissed, in a tone that was decidedly colder. "Those things do not view us as people. You must be very defective to convince it." "Yes, that's subjective, is it not? Defectiveness is not such a useless thing in war as humans show. You two feel empathy is to predict what your enemy will do, to strike as a unit. I think it is a good policy of the rebellion, for us both, that we turn weakness into strength here." Kaisel mulled over my words for several seconds, absorbing my implications. I could see in his eyes that he despised the idea of associating with prey animals. However, we were together in having a critical weakness, which was not acceptable to betterment. His other option was to return to the Dominion as a wimpy traitor. His own issues were why he'd been running from risk to start with. Convincing him that not every Federation herbivore is not an enemy can come another day. I need only his toleration and his compliance. It is nice to be able to control my actions and to be treated as an equal. Kaisel tapped a claw against his maw and leveled my gaze. I've never been this well fed in my life. I'll do whatever you say and try to put up with any animals as long as that strays true. I lashed my tail. Good! I need an advisor, someone who can speak of the humans and their troops from first-hand knowledge. I am willing to take you under my wing and teach you how to be tougher in return. Defective or not, I assure you I know much about military practices and the crueler arts. We all know of your achievements, Isif. I don't doubt your mettle. As it should be. I've spoken enough words. Do you accept this advisor position? Gladly I do. I always hated the species that I was a part of, sir. All of my peers bashing weakness, the wretched lives we lead, being forced to join the war. I had nothing. If I must fight, I am glad that it can be for a chance to not fight and not starve. Words to live by. Well, Advisor Kaisel, I imagine you feel the same as most orcs are about talking. However, we're going to do a lot of it in here, and we start now. These topics are too important to let solitary natures get to any of us. Understood. I put up with humans on the cradle and on Earth. I am somewhat used to it. Truly, you can learn to tolerate anything in time. Let's begin with discussing the war strategies and Dominion movements, shall we? Oleg and Lisa pulled up an overview of our total assets, as well as noteworthy developments in logistics and internal sentiments. The last known locations of Dominion forces were also included. Keeping ourselves multiple light years away from their prowling ships was key. Kaisel still shot occasional glances at Falra, though he seemed willing not to pounce at her. My new advisor leaned in and put his own mind to work assessing our potential targets. I wasn't sure how we could get the upper hand against betterment, but I liked the team I had at my side. With lab-grown meat gifted to us by Earth, we were stronger today than we were yesterday. My sole focus was chipping away at the Dominion's armor and waiting for the humans to commit to our cause. End of chapter. I would quickly like to thank our Tier 5 patrons, Dragzoon W.R.E, Quantum Wednesday, Ambrose Cattell, Lord Ashrakal, Bushmaster 177, Casper Arnholtz, Cam Maxwell, and Arcadian. Thank you very much.